Welcome to another episode of Serious Though. I'm your host, Ron, and thank y'all for continuing listening. Hey, today we're going to talk about a subject. It's called caregiving. Go ahead, Pam, talk about the subject. What you got about the subject, Pam?
Well, one of the things I just wanted to touch on, especially today with the reality of things like mental illness. With COVID, I think there's been a big, wide spread of different capacities of mental health, mental behavior. And I think it touched on a lot of families, a lot of Americans, a lot of people who may have been facing it for many, many years. But with COVID and being isolated and being in such a, what we consider to be less than a desirable state where you're out and fast going and moving and constantly doing things.
Like we're designed to do.
Like we're designed to do. When you slow down and you get into your thoughts and your mental, I see that really has changed a lot of people over the last couple of years. And so one of the things I wanted to say is, just constantly being aware and conscious of other people and their needs. I personally, as a caregiver, on many different levels, I have two children who suffer from physical and health conditions that are chronic conditions, but I also have, family members that suffer from mental health. Absolutely. And it's just as big as the physical.
For sure.
And what I really wanted to say is, we have to be conscious when we are put into that role of becoming a caregiver.
How do you be conscious, though? Because that's a lot being said. You're saying being conscious. Some people are not conscious of just basic stuff. So how do you get conscious of being a caregiver and knowing that? Do you ask questions or what's up?
Yeah, and so what it is really understanding the needs, understanding that people have needs.
Okay.
And being able to categorize that. And some of those are complex and cross many different categories.
Absolutely.
But when you have someone who has, and I don't want to say special needs, but, someone that has...
elevated needs.
Different levels of needs.
Right.
And so whether it's a parent or a spouse, a child, a family member, and sometimes it could just be a friend.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of people who've had to move in and help their friends during times of crisis. And so what I wanted to say is always being in the position where God can use you and allow you to see those needs. It's really about awareness. Right? So communicating with people with their needs, communicating with professionals, whether they're medical or mental professionals or community professionals. How do I help someone in need before it's too late?
Give me an example. I'm putting you on the spot right now of communication because I want to teach people out there the way you do it because you're very good at it. So you're communicating with me. I need elevated needs right now. How would you ask those questions of me if I have mental elevated needs right now, I'm talking about myself, folks, and how would you ask me those questions to find out what's going on with me? Can you role play with me right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So here I am, Ronald, meeting you for the first time, or actually just engaging in a conversation, even knowing you for a long period of time.
Right.
One of the things I'm going to genuinely ask is, how are you? A lot of people say, how are you? And they really don't want to hear, how are you?
Wow. So you start off with that?
I pause to give them that dedicated time. Not in passing by, not in, hey, what's up? Because that's really like, I'm already blocked off. I don't care what you got going on. I don't know if you have any needs. I'm not ready to open up to those needs. But when I genuinely come in and say, hey, Ronald, how are you doing?
I'm not doing okay. I'm doing okay, but,
So what's going on?
So, yeah. So then I would give me the opportunity to talk more.
Yeah. I'm going to create that space for you. And that space is saying, I not only have genuine interest, I'm dedicating time, and nothing else is more important. Not the cell phone, not.
So you're not on your cell phone when you're asking me this question?
No, I'm really coming into your space to say, "Hey, Ronald, how are you doing?"
Does eye contact matter or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Body language or anything?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I'm going to look in your eyes and see
Okay.
if there's hurt and pain.
Wow. Okay.
And then somebody's going to say, why is she sitting there really talking about how are you doing? And then I'm going to say, so what's going on? What you been up to?
Wow. So I've been up to a lot. I've been, doing this, that, and the other.
How's it working out for you?
It's okay. It's working out well, and, it needs a little adjusting and stuff like that. But, I'm glad you asked these questions because nobody really asked these questions.
So I'm just wondering if it's not really working out, what are the things you're doing? Maybe something I can help, refer, or get you some resources, some ways that I can give you reach back, support, even if I can't personally do it myself.
Wow. So that's amazing. I'm amazed because most people don't realize you put a lot of effort into what you did just now. If everyone could see you with the body language and the things you said, that's the way you got to talk to someone when you're engaging with elevated needs.
Yes.
Elevated needs. And so.
Yes. And I think so, it's always easy to see the physical. You look for the handicap.
Yes.
And everybody's ready to help that person that's in a wheelchair. Oh, let me get the door. You need help getting it off the shelf? They're engaged, like, ooh, we're ready to be an assistant and a servant. But I do that without seating the wheelchair.
Ooh, okay. That's a lot right there. That was without seeing the wheelchair, I give you that mental capacity that you need and undivided attention. Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. That's.
So, and one of the things I would also say, though, is you have to be able to take on another person's crisis, because that might be a moment of crisis, right? They could be saying, I'm going to the doctor, I'm not getting any help, I'm trying to find a therapist, everybody's booked. It's like, what is going to be your response? Because you don't want to leave them desolate. So there's, how do I get to the point of equipping myself to be a caregiver, to be a support?
That's amazing. Thank you for giving us that information, and I think there's a lot of people who can get a lot of help from this information. Did anybody want to add anything to this?
I do. I think that is excellent, and you were right on point. So coming from the person who have been in the seat of mental illness and physical illness, I've sat in that seat, and just because you're asked that question doesn't mean you're going to answer. What you do is, that's how you're gifted from the standpoint of, seeing people's needs and all that. Everybody isn't. You are. So if you lay a foundation in the relationship, that person has to be open. It's timing. It's all of that. Because there's been so many people with mental illness that have been so loved, and they leave here with people loving on them. So everything is correct. You're doing your part. But it is a process. Yes. Also.
Yes, it is.
It's a process. You can ask the question 100 times and not get an answer, but on 101, you may. And from the physical standpoint, I always prided myself on being physically strong. And I recently experienced cancer and other things that took all my energy, everything. I couldn't comb my hair. It's gonna make me cry.
That's okay. It's okay.
People need to hear it.
It's okay to cry.
Let's hear it.
It's okay to cry.
But my husband,
it's okay to cry.
My husband, as a caregiver, he saw those needs. And I understand, and I never could understand how someone who's in a physical condition could be so mean to the caregiver. So I had to watch myself. he'll ask me how I'm doing. How you think I'm doing?
Ooh,
You know?
right.
And so for me, he's just trying to care for me. But when you're sick and when you're in pain and you're not feeling good, sometimes it's just not a right thing to say to somebody. But sitting in that seat made me think about that. So if he asked me something and I'm getting sharp with him, he didn't say anything, but I thought about it and I apologized. So even for people who are sick, there's a place for them to play in this too, to that caregiver, because it's not an easy place for either one to sit in. But like you said, Pam, you have to constantly think about what that person is going through and just have forgiveness for them, knowing that they don't mean it. But like I said, it's a gift. Everybody can't do it. I even think about if this was reversed, if it was my husband, I'd be like, if he calls me one more time.
Right, exactly.
One more time. That's what's going through my head. So it has to be going through his head.
Right.
But he never showed it. He never showed it.
That's
So,
amazing.
yes, caregivers are a blessing.
That's
Mentally, physically, whatever the challenge it is. And I have, when I was in the hospital before I left on the board, I thanked everyone who helped me from the time I walked in there, the CNAs, everybody. It's no joke. It's not for the faint of heart.
And I'm really glad that you brought that part out, right? So, having been a caregiver, and I don't say it started when I was young, just because my mom battled with a health condition, but I've seen her in her best, in her happy days, and I saw her, in her depression. I saw her suffer, but she didn't go and talk to a therapist. She found other ways to escape. So I've always been, one person who was in tune to someone in need physically, and I always prayed for God to give me strength to always be in a position to help, to be asked for someone to call me and have a need for me. But not only that, not getting tired, not getting weary. You don't want to get weary. And so part of that is, how do you get sustained? When you're a caregiver, it doesn't matter when you're sick. It doesn't matter when you're happy. And usually the caregivers are the ones who get the most abuse.
Yes.
Emotionally, physically, mentally, verbally.
Yes, they do.
You have to put yourself in a place that's separate and apart, that this person doesn't have anybody else to take this out on, not the doctors, not the therapists. It's the person who's there 24/7. And so I know, especially having 2 children, I can't imagine what they go through. But when I put myself in that bubble and I said, man, if it were me, how would I be feeling? Well, I don't want to hear, are you in pain, when you're in pain every day? I don't want to hear, oh, are you tired, when you're tired to get out of bed? I don't want to hear what else you could be doing when you're doing everything you can be doing to do what you're doing on a day-to-day. So I just think it's amazing to hear that from you,
Yes,
being
is.
on both sides. And let's just say my Boaz, my partner, I was very grateful because I never thought I'd meet anybody like me, even close to me, to be able to do this journey with me and this walk with me, being a constant caregiver, not to 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4, but 5 individuals at any given time, and not be able to run away.
It takes a lot. And I'm thinking about both of them. I'm thinking about James. I'm sitting over here watching him too. And I'm thinking about James. I'm thinking about Chester. I mean, James, I mean, that was a lot. Like that mentally, like you said, and to do that and acknowledge that, I know that makes him feel good. And so thank you for doing that. You didn't have to say anything, but and then with Chester, I mean, that stepping into a family that's there. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I don't know if I could do that, like, or if I would do that. But you did that, or you are doing that. So it takes a strong person to do that. It really does. And I don't know, and I think we said something briefly on the phone. I maybe said, why are you like this or something like that. But you may want to reiterate, like, how, like, you are caring and giving genuinely. I just met you, and I can tell that you're not like a facade of something. I may joke around like, hey, Chester, but that's just who you are. How did you get to that? And like, talk to us.
So when you grow up with nothing, and you just want to help other people, it becomes easy. All right. And I'll tell you, one of the thing I think helps me the most is being an active listener. Because I can ask you all day how you're feeling, but I got to be an active listener, and I have to be engaged with you and pay attention. I can see when you're hurt. I can see when you're in pain, and I have to be able to help you maneuver around that. Right? I know if you're in pain and I ask you something that's not so smart, you're gonna give me a not so smart answer.
Right.
All right. So you try to work around that. Right? You try to make the person feel as comfortable as possible. Like Ms. Brenda said a minute ago, she's in agony, pain, and discomfort, and you say, how you doing? Well, that you see me and I'm in agony, pain, and discomfort, so I'm going to give you an answer like you gave me the question. Most of the times when someone in need, or I guess have an ailment or sickness or whatever case may be, and they go to a hospital and they're not feeling well, they don't get the proper care because most people are doing it for $1. Okay, so if I go to a professional and asking for help, and you're not watching me and you're writing something, I know you're not paying attention to me. Right? You don't know what's going on with me, and if you ask me the same question 4 different ways, I know you're really not paying attention to me. Then, this is not a psychology lesson where you got to ask me the same question 5 times.
Right.
When I'm in pain, I'm in pain. So you start to have those dialogues with a person, and like Ms. Brenda said, sometimes it takes a while.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes it takes a while, but the more you're around, the more you visualize, the more you listen, the easier it becomes. Right? So if I'm dealing with someone who needs my assistance, I know when to give it and when not to. I know when to push and when not to push. All right? So I put myself in their shoes. If I needed help, what would I want somebody to do for me? I don't know how I would react if I knew I came down with a serious illness, because I'm an active person. I'm moving around all the time. So I don't know. I mean, I'd probably be the grumpiest man in the world. But God is good.
God is good.
God is good.
Yes,
I think what I've learned out of this whole conversation today is something called humble. Make yourself humble, humility. I mean, you have to. A lot of people out there like myself, I wasn't humble at some points in time in life, but I am a humble person now. I do know how to be humble. I do know sometimes I have to be vulnerable. Yeah. And all that is part of the caregiver and acceptance and when someone is just like Chester said, he's been doing active activities. If something it probably would, but he understands that. He knows that. And so having someone like you is perfect for him. I'm not even going to keep going, but y'all understand what I'm saying.
I think we're perfect for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give that. Right here it is, right here. You gotta see Chester, y'all. That gosh darn it, Chester. All right. So no, absolutely. So I just wanted to end it on that note and just say thank you everyone for sharing and letting it being vulnerable right now, being open. This was another episode of Serious Though. Thank you for listening.